Imagine living next to a giant, a superpower that has invaded neighboring countries multiple times in its history. Wouldn't you be worried about the possibility of an invasion? Let's delve into the echoes of the past, starting with Russia's invasion of Afghanistan in the year 1979. This marked a pivotal moment in the Cold War era, when the Soviet Union, eager to spread its communist ideology, stepped into the Afghan conflict. The invasion lasted for a decade, resulting in a heavy toll of human lives and a strained economy. Fast forward to the early 90s, the dissolution of the Soviet Union led to a brief period of relative calm. However, the respite was short-lived. In the year 2008, Russia invaded Georgia, a small country located in the Caucasus region. The 5-day war resulted in the declaration of independence by two Georgian regions, Abkhazia and South Ossetia, both of which are currently under Russian control. The echoes of the past reverberated loudly in the year 2014, when Russia annexed Crimea, a region that was part of Ukraine. This move was seen as a blatant violation of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The annexation of Crimea was driven by Russia's desire to assert its territorial claims and to protect its strategic military interests in the Black Sea. These invasions share common threads: a powerful nation exerting its influence over weaker neighbors, the use of military force to assert territorial claims, and a disregard for international norms and laws. The reasons behind these invasions range from the spread of communism during the Cold War to territorial disputes and strategic military interests in more recent times. So when we look at this historical backdrop, it's understandable that the fear of another Russian invasion isn't unfounded. The past echoes loudly, and the worry is, will history repeat itself? Will the giant awaken once more, casting a long and ominous shadow over its neighbors? Only time will tell. Given this history, the fear of another Russian invasion isn't unfounded. Fast forward to 2024, and the echoes of the past are reverberating across the globe. The Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2023 has sent shockwaves around the world. It was a year ago when the first signs of this unprecedented geopolitical shift started appearing. The world watched as Russia, led by its unwavering leader Vladimir Putin, made its aggressive intentions clear. The invasion was not an isolated incident. It was preceded by a systematic suppression of civil society within Russia. Voices of dissent were silenced, political opponents were imprisoned, and the country seemed to be reverting back to a repressive past. This was a clear sign of a regime that was preparing to assert itself in the international arena. The international community was quick to react. Sanctions were imposed, diplomatic ties were strained, and protests erupted around the globe. Yet Putin remained defiant. He was not just challenging the sovereignty of Ukraine, but the very principles of international law and order. And then came the invasion. It was swift and brutal, leaving the world in shock and Ukraine in turmoil. As the dust settled, the world began to comprehend the magnitude of what had just happened. A sovereign nation had been invaded, its people's lives thrown into chaos, and the global political landscape forever altered. The situation within Ukraine remains volatile, with the country fighting a desperate battle for its sovereignty. The spirit of the Ukrainian people remains unbroken, though. They are resisting the invasion with all their might, refusing to let their homeland be taken away from them. Meanwhile, within Russia, cracks are beginning to appear in Putin's rule. Speculation is rife about another wave of mobilization and signs of elite competition in Moscow. Putin's recent visit to Volgograd, invoking historical symbolism to justify Russia's actions in Ukraine, may well be a sign of a regime feeling the pressure. With the situation in Ukraine still volatile, the world watches anxiously as Russia flexes its muscles. But the question on everyone's mind is this: could Russia be preparing for a new assault? To answer this, we need to look at the signs that are already starting to surface. One significant indicator is the involvement of the private military company Wagner in Ukraine. This organization, which has previously been linked to the Kremlin, echoes Soviet tactics, raising concerns about the potential for a more extensive covert military operation. But there's more. Talk of another wave of mobilization is circulating, hinting at the potential for a more significant show of military force. This isn't just about flexing muscles. It's a strategy that could be adopted for a long war. It's an approach that isn't about quick victories, but rather about wearing down an opponent over time. So what could be the targets of such an assault? Well, the specifics are hard to pin down, but it's likely to be nations that Russia sees as within its sphere of influence. Perhaps countries that have historically been part of the Soviet Union, or those where Russia has significant cultural or political ties. The repercussions of such an assault would undoubtedly be far-reaching. It could further destabilize the already fragile balance of power in the region, potentially leading to more conflict and loss of life. It's a scenario that the international community is keen to avoid, but with Russia seemingly undeterred by sanctions and international condemnation, the path ahead is uncertain. The role of figures like Prigozhin in this potential new assault is also worth noting. His growing influence could be a sign of shifting power dynamics within Russia, adding another layer of complexity to the situation. While it's impossible to predict Russia's next move, the signs are certainly worrying. As we watch the situation unfold, it's important to remember that the stakes are high, not just for those directly involved, but for all global citizens. One man stands at the center of this speculation: Yevgeny Prigozhin. In the shifting landscape of Russian politics, Prigozhin's influence is growing, casting a long shadow over the nation's future. Known for his close ties to Vladimir Putin, Yevgeny Prigozhin has emerged as a key figure, with a web of connections that reach far beyond Russia's borders. Prigozhin's reach is particularly felt in the world of private military companies. The Wagner Group, known for its involvement in Ukraine, is often linked to Prigozhin, hinting at a deep and complex influence over Russia's military strategy. This shadowy organization echoes Soviet tactics, raising concerns about the potential for a new era of covert warfare. But Prigozhin isn't just a figure lurking in the shadows. Speculation is growing about a potential challenge to Putin's power. While Putin has long maintained a tight grip on Russia, cracks are beginning to show. And in these cracks, some see the silhouette of Prigozhin, ready to step into the light. What does this mean for Russia's foreign policy? The implications are as vast as they are uncertain. A shift in power could lead to a shift in strategy, with ripple effects felt far beyond Russia's borders. As Prigozhin's influence grows, so too does the possibility of a more aggressive, more unpredictable Russia on the world stage. But for now, these are only possibilities, shadows cast by a man who prefers to operate in the dark. As we watch and wait, one thing is clear: Prigozhin's influence is a wild card, a factor that could tip the scales in an already precarious balance of power. As Prigozhin's influence grows, so too does the uncertainty surrounding Russia's international ambitions. We've come a long way from the Cold War, but the specter of Russian aggression looms large over international politics. The history is clear, from the invasion of Afghanistan in the late 70s to the annexation of Crimea in 2014, Russia has shown a willingness to flex its military might. The recent invasion of Ukraine in 2023 has only amplified these fears, casting a long shadow over the future of global politics. Consider this: another Russian invasion could potentially disrupt the balance of power that has held since the end of the Second World War. Major powers like the United States and China would likely be forced to respond, though the nature of that response is uncertain. Would they engage militarily, or would they opt for diplomatic and economic sanctions? These are questions that are currently being debated in the halls of power across the globe. The implications of another Russian incursion extend beyond the immediate threat to the invaded country. It could potentially challenge the very fabric of the international order, undermining the United Nations and other international institutions that have been working tirelessly to maintain global peace and stability. The world has become increasingly interconnected, and any disruption to the balance of power could have far-reaching implications. Adding to the uncertainty is the growing influence of Yevgeny Prigozhin, a man linked to the Wagner Group, a private military company involved in the Ukraine conflict. His rise to power within the Russian establishment could signal a shift in Russia's approach to international politics. In the end, only time will reveal Russia's true intentions. Until then, the world must remain vigilant. The stakes are high, and the consequences of inaction could be catastrophic. But history has shown us that when faced with aggression, the international community can and will stand together in defense of peace and stability.